Connecté avec l'excellente musique congolaise, suivant des moments de joie et d'amour avec les fêtes de mariage et d'anniversaire. Nourrissons notre foi en Dieu avec les services de prière et de culte, suivant l'histoire du Congo et les documentaires des Congolais. Soyons connectés sur les actualités des filles et des fils du pays partout dans le monde. Découvrons des émissions de qualité, partageons notre savoir. Nous sommes à votre disposition pour vos émissions directes de notre studio, dans vos églises ou même dans vos maisons. Appelez-nous, contactez-nous sur WhatsApp. Boss Brothers TV, tout le monde en parle.
Hi and welcome to Accompanied by Jess. It is your host as usual, Jess, and I'm proud to actually bring you back onto the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, for being faithful and patient and consistent. I know with the show it's been on, off, but I do believe by the grace of God it will consistently stay on. As you can see by the title today, I have another wonderful story for you entitled We've Made It. As you already know, due to the sensitivity of this show, I will not disclose names. I will not give out names of who it is, just to, cover and conceal their personal identification. But I am definitely here with another story for you today. So, just listen through. Today, I have actually a story of two siblings, one called Ron and Shakila, and they have actually emailed me just to share their story on why they've entitled it We've Made It. It's actually a testimony and to strengthen all of you who are actually believers of Christ, because it is based off Christianity, but it's also something that they felt that they wanted to share with anybody out there who have come from their background. So Ron and Shakila, at the age of, I believe, 16 and 15, because they're not far in age gap, they're actually a year apart, were both associated in gangs in London. I'm not going to disclose the area, but they were both associated in gangs in London, and they were selling drugs and, of course, in violence. Ron is obviously a male, Shakila is obviously a female. And so you kind of hear, they did tell me both their views of what they particularly went through. Shakila actually wasn't necessarily associated very much into the gang world, but because she was associated with selling drugs, she was kind of like in between, so she got along with everyone inside of the area that they were in. However, Ron was very much deeply associated with it, representing the gangs and associated with it. Now, coming from the perspective of Shakila, she was associated with gangs at the age of 15, and obviously having been associated with not associated with gangs, but associated with those who were in gangs but selling drugs. And she was mainly doing this as she had a boyfriend who kind of did it as well. She never really told her brother too much of the information, as of course if your brother's associated in gangs and you yourself you're selling drugs, it's a bit tricky and sticky. But somehow with her dominant character, as she said she was, and the way that she was before, she managed to have been selling them, getting them through and around. Eventually she did actually meet someone who was her boyfriend there, who got her into it. She made a lot of money out of it, as she was saying, and her experiences was that as she was doing it, she was selling a lot of drugs. She came across a few nitties, as they call it, a lot of people who are drug addicts. Many of them were pregnant women. Many of them were actually, I believe even past the age, they kind of were into drugs and alcohol addiction, men and female. She was selling the drugs because the needs were at home. They had to pay bills. There was so much going on. Things were just going on at home in terms of financial needs. They're helping their mum because they were raised by a single mother. So this was what was kind of keeping her going, despite she was studying. She had already been actually, I believe at that age, she was actually kicked out already, and she had to go into another, I believe, a junior school. I cannot recall the name, I do apologize. So she continuously did that. As she continued doing it, associated with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend wasn't even associated with gangs so much, but he did know people of gangs. He did know what they were about, and so it continues as is, to be honest. Whereas with Ron, completely into that lifestyle of drugs and gangs, completely representing them. On several occasions, they had actually ran into the house where they lived, to actually look for him and look for his face. He was very well known in the area, especially in his estate where they were living. So it came one day that Shakila, she came across a member of her church that she currently goes to, and she basically she was invited by a young man, and he invited her to the church, and she went. She got to know the members. It was the church was very packed, like with a lot of youth. They were really on to worshiping God and serving the Lord and everything inside of it. So it was really packed and everything. So she really loved the atmosphere, everything about it. She got to meet the pastor of the church and also the mother of the church, as it's called. And from that point, she began to realize that she didn't want to be associated with the lifestyle of drugs. Now, where I didn't actually go into the depths of what I'm about to say with Shakila, I'm taking on the girl's perspective, because I will get onto Ron's perspective as a man, but as a female, she said also being associated with a person who sells drugs, and you would know a lot of people from gangs and associated in that area. It is very, very scary. It is a very scary predicament because, one, if you go wrong in any predicament, you are also hurt. You are holding drugs on behalf of not just herself, but her boyfriend on many occasions. You're in the car, there's stuff in the back of the car. You don't want to get caught. So she said it's a very scary lifestyle. It's something that she just felt like she had to do rather than her personally going out and taking the other route of being promiscuous, selling her body and stuff. She just didn't feel comfortable doing that. But neither did she feel comfortable selling drugs and actually associating herself with these things. So on several occasions, she did have conversations with her boyfriend. She never spoke to her brother about it too much because despite her brother knew somewhat of this information, but she never really went into it. She kept it as discreet as possible and kind of wanted to get out of the lifestyle as quickly as possible. However, this was managing her bills. It was managing what she was buying for herself. It was just getting her to go. And I can imagine at the age of 15, personally for me, that for you to actually be selling drugs at the age of 15 and you're a female, and it's a bit of a weird predicament to find yourself in. Of course, at that age, you can't find yourself. It's not necessarily the easiest to find yourself a job because you're under 18, but it's a bit of a scary predicament to go out there to sell drugs, and you're selling drugs to older men. Anything could happen, and especially when you're meeting up on your own, anything could happen. She was expressing that on several occasions because she was selling drugs to older men and to older people, that they actually have tried on many occasions trying to touch her. Luckily for her, because she didn't, how can I explain it? She wasn't associated in gangs, but because she knew of those gangs, she was considered as a little sister in that area. So if anyone tried anything with her, she was able to have a phone call away for her protection. But she said on many occasions, it's not the first time, but it was, it was several times. So she did become a bit more conserved, selective of who she wanted to sell the drugs to. Where her heart broke was that she began to sell drugs to women who were heavily pregnant and they wanted to have drugs. And that's kind of where it broke her as a young girl, because tomorrow she would probably have kids, and to be sold drugs, and you're heavily pregnant, you're still taking it, you're not considering the child in the womb. And so this was kind of like the things that she was facing that broke her internally. So now she had been invited to this ministry and to this church. She felt comfortable to actually go, and she felt like, okay, this is a relief. And I've tried, many occasions she was preached the word of God. She was told about God being real, but she didn't feel like he was real enough due to the fact that her mum was broke. Her brother was into the same thing. She didn't have a dad. She was the youngest, in fact. So it was kind of like a weird balance. She was invited to the church, the ministry. She got to know the pastor, as I said, the mother of the house as well, and they managed to be able to counsel her. What kept her there was actually, she was so shocked by the fact that they were actually into prophecies. And I believe she said her first encounter was that she was called at the front. She was called at the front by the man of God, and the man of God gave her a word. And the word that she received was that she was a great woman of God and that the Lord loved her and wanted to use her further and beyond. But she was in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. And the Lord had seen her many tears of crying while she was asleep. So she typed this to me actually. She did message me. She said this was her prophetic word of what she received. From that moment, she felt as if she was heard, and every void in her heart of not having a father figure, of not, you know, having the security, because she received the word, and I believe she had counseling as well. All of these things got her to be relieved, got her to really settle down and think, wow, there's hope. I don't have to be selling drugs. I don't have to get myself in dangerous predicaments where I can easily be raped. I can actually get myself together. Luckily for her, she continued to go on a Sunday, and for some reason the conviction came that she shouldn't be selling drugs. She didn't feel comfortable doing it. She didn't want to associate herself with it. Eventually, she quit. She began to quit. She began to kind of drop it. Her friends and those around her began to see a difference in her, and her mission was now next to get her brother off the roads and off the streets and into the gang, because he was very heavily into it. And for her brother, Ron, who was heavily into it, he used to carry guns, have drugs, everything. At the age of 16, imagine you're carrying a gun, you're going to fight, you're selling these out, you're literally living a lifestyle that's crazy. He was obviously her father figure. So she said her next mission was to actually get her brother off the roads, off the gangs, off that lifestyle, because it's a trap. She felt like she wasn't free. So you can imagine for her brother, who's the eldest, and they're paying for their mum and trying to get things done at home. It is a very heavy burden. You're being the father figure to a person that you don't even have a father yourself. You're being the man of the house and everything. So she said it's time to get him off the roads. So as she was continuously coming, even her brother started to see a change in her, which was very positive in his eyes. But of course, it brought issues in areas of finances. Despite the money was great, despite they were able to pay a lot of things, their mom did start to get complacent, comfortable in the way that they were living in terms of finances. And she was demanding more from her. And now that she would manage to actually get her brother to come to the ministry once or twice, she did eventually get him in the end to come, and thankfully he did they both gave their lives to Christ. Now, just before I step into them getting their lives into Christ, their mum was very, very much comfortable in the place of getting money from the children. She herself was working because she has to, you know, you have to pay your tax, you have to pay everything's under your name. But she became complacent, she became comfortable, she was happy with the money that her children were bringing, rather than being concerned about, okay, let me help my children there, you know, by managing to get myself a better job, to get myself a better position. She didn't want to really kind of do that. Her job wasn't necessarily the most highest paid job, but it managed to pay the bills. Now, just before issues had got heavy between them and their mum, Shakila managed to get Ron to actually come to church. And it was very tricky in the beginning, but she insisted, obviously being the younger sister, that's his soft spot. So he was hesitant because he felt as if he was going to be judged by going to church. And obviously he himself, he didn't feel comfortable that he was associated with gangs. He was preached the gospel by several of his previous friends who were already going to church and things like that, but they weren't associating drugs anymore. He was preached the word, but he just felt like this lifestyle's not for me. Like, I need to make this money. I have bills to pay in the house. I want to live a lifestyle. I like the girls. I like the money. So he also got comfortable. He also felt a sense that within the gangs, within the crews, within, you know, being associated as a member, that was home. That was home, because he felt like this is somewhere I can be. Like, I feel like this is home. You know, I feel loved here. So that was one of the main reasons that kept him bound into that lifestyle. She got him to come, and luckily he came. Despite the mindset, despite everything. Thankfully enough, the day he entered, like his sister, the day he entered, he also received the word. and the Lord began to touch on deeper things of their family. They didn't disclose this area of me, but began to touch on deeper elements of their family, where they came from. The man of God began to confirm things of their family members, began to confirm what the Lord wanted them to do. Their private addictions as well, began to confirm it, began to speak to them. And you know, I thank God they had their area and their place of where they believed that they could get help. So they received help in this ministry, and their pastor began to actually help them to pay off their bills, pay off their debts, pay off everything, began to speak to the mother, began to work with them, began to counsel them. The mum now where the issue was beginning to arise was that as soon as Ron began to give his life to Christ and accept it, that's where the whirlwind began. That's where the fight began, because it was like the mother already had gotten complacent with the money, gotten complacent with what it is that she wanted, you know, she could buy anything, she could go out, she could boast, I have this car, I have these clothes, my children, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that. So she had already gotten complacent. It caused so many issues. Their journey in the Lord wasn't the easiest. On many occasions, they had been kicked out, fighting within the house. Their mum wasn't accepting of it because she wasn't getting what she wanted, and they had to be literally like that, as strong as they could, to fight that battle, to make their mum understand why and what it is that they were giving themselves to. Literally, I commend them at such a young age of 15 and 16, going into, you know, 17 and 16, the fight they had to go through, but they fought through and they won. They won their mum over by helping her to understand that, you know, this place is not a bad place. We don't want to sell drugs. We feel trapped. They were able to get counseling by the man of God, and, you know, just to literally help them through financially, help them through addictions, help them through family issues that they were encountering amongst themselves, just to manage. And the mum finally accepted, despite herself, she didn't feel like she was ready to give her life to Christ or to, you know, give herself, but she was very happy. So they managed to get, you know, have a good setting, and that's why they've entitled their testimony as "We've made it." We've made it in the sense that many have entered the lifestyle of gangs, crews, because of that void, because of the area of the fact that they didn't have a home, they don't have anywhere to go, they don't have people that they can speak to about their situations apart from the people that are associated with gangs. They just felt that, okay, this is home for me. My mum doesn't talk to me. She's working most of the time. I don't have a dad. You know, I'm here on my own. So they felt that by going into these gangs, by associating themselves with these things, that's what would have helped. Referring back now to Shakila, and I felt like Shakila was actually the one that managed to send out this email to me. Thank you so much. If you know yourself, you're watching. She managed to email me, and she actually said, you know, she felt that she wanted to express being a girl associated with gangs, not associated necessarily deeply into gangs, but associated with people who are in gangs, selling drugs, in that lifestyle. It is a scary environment. Many girls find themselves in that predicament due to the fact that they don't have a father. They don't have finances to take care of themselves. And one of the reasons why she felt associated and who brought her, what made her go in, was because she was going to school. And on many occasions, her mum was in debt for many reasons. Debts with family, debts with friends, because she couldn't manage her bills at certain points because the financial ladder was just too much on her mum's end. Going to school with holes in her shoes, unable to clean her shirt had brown stains. Like, it was a struggle. Her hair, nappy, undone. So she literally felt like, you know, she was mocked at school, bullied, Of course, she was dark skinned as well, pretty dark in complexion. She was just bullied completely, and she just felt like, I've had enough of being bullied, not being able to buy the clothes that I want to buy to look good, not my mum being mocked because she can't afford things for myself and my brother. And all these things started to pile up on her. So she just felt like, do you know what, I need to go out, I need to do something. So that's where she encountered another friend who was actually in school, and she had already seen, you know, her friend. She was coming into school, nice shoes, her hair's always done, you know, she just looked good every time. When the bullying had got past a certain stage in her school, she began to fight. That's when her behavior and temper started to associate itself. So before she actually met this girl, she had behavioral issues because she was bullied so much to the point where she said, I've had enough, I'm gonna fight now. So one time she walked into school, there was a group of girls that used to associate themselves, and they used to pick on her, and they would rob her of the little money that she had to buy her lunch at school. So they come to her and they would like be like, oh wait, we want the money now, you know where it is. And there was this particular girl, and she was fair in complexion, and she kind of used to run the school in her own way. So she came and she was like, yeah, you know where it is, I want the money. This girl wasn't in the same year as her, but she was in, I believe, in year 10, year 11, associated with those ages. She approached her, we want the money, give us the money, hand it over, you know where it is. And that day, for some reason, Shakila said, no, not this time, I'm not gonna hand you over the money. I don't want to give you anything. This is my lunch. I need to eat. I have to get myself together. The girl said, what? Eat what? You don't even look like you eat anything. You're just the size of a twig. And literally snatched the money off her. From then, she just went wild. She started fighting the girl. And literally, she just literally completely pulled her hair out. Like, it was just a mess. She got put in inclusion. Shakila got put in inclusion. The other girl got separated from herself. She also explained to the teachers what was happening and how long it was continuously happening for. I believe at some point, it seems as if the bullying was still persistent, hadn't stopped, and was continuous. I believe now, at this point, the teachers had no control over Shakila's behavior, because it was getting out of hand. She now became the bully. She was bullied so much that she now became the bully. And from that day on, I believe she met with a girl. The girl was associated already in drugs, already in gangs. Her boyfriend was already in gangs. From there, that's where she entered. And, you know, her advice today was that it wasn't easy. It wasn't a pleasant thing being a bully, because she had been bullied herself. And to bully somebody else isn't pleasant. But because she felt like nobody was understanding her, nobody had a voice, nobody could tame her or put her, you know, could be a comforter to her, because she didn't have much friends. She was bullied about everything: her appearance, the way she dressed, you know, her mother. People knew. So she was just like, I have nowhere to kind of go. Nobody is taking me seriously. I want to do best in my education, but I can't because people are bullying me. I'm coming to school. The teachers are not doing anything. That's where it led her to. Her experiences said it was just a very scary environment. You know, on several occasions, she had been literally, you know, sexually harassed, you know, touched inappropriately by men that she was selling these drugs to. And luckily for her, she was quite a tall girl. So her appearance, her body, everything, she just appeared, you know, much more mature than the other girls. So she was able to manage to kind of get herself away by either fighting, even with the men she was selling drugs with, before they could do anything to her. But she said it was the survival of the fittest, you know. That's all she could do. So she recommends that anyone who's associated drugs and gangs, you know, she's been there. She doesn't want you to continue in those footsteps. She wouldn't recommend it. It's a lifestyle that's a trap. You stay in there. There's nowhere to go. You're bullied. You're kind of, you know, whoever's above you kind of enforces a lot of things. And for her to have come out was by grace, because she was in debt herself. Whenever she was unable to sell these drugs or give these drugs, you know, she she had these females and other guys coming to her saying, you know, we're gonna run you down. There was also other people that she whenever she would try to sell the drugs, they would try to consistently ask her to give up her body. She just felt uncomfortable. So that's what led to her. So when she finally found the place of where she could get counseling, where she could get help, where she could get assistance, she took it. She definitely took it, and today she's happy. And for her brother as well, who was in a similar predicament, heavily into it, known for gangs, known for murder, at his young age, she was happy because he could have been locked up. He could have been in any predicament. So this is the story that I wanted to just share with you today, and I'm very, very thankful that you've heard through. Today Shaquila's so happy. She's managed, I believe today she's 17, she's managed to actually get herself a proper job. She's gone back into education. She's gone into college, where I believe she's managed to finish her GCSEs. Now she's, you know, thinking of brighter and better ideas. Likewise with her brother, who's now finished. He's working full-time. He's managed to get himself off the roads, completely serving God 110%. And that's why they've entitled their story, their testimony as "We've Made It," that Christ changed their lives, broken them, you know, taken them out of the places that they were in, they were bound to, and had made a life for them. Something that was legal, something that was comfortable, something that made them free. And they just want to share that with you today. So if you're associated with gangs, if you're associated with drugs, if you're associated with, you know, the bad environment, don't give up on those that are out there who are willing to help you change your life. They are there for that purpose. There are good people. There are people who are genuine. People who are willing to say, we're going to help you to get off the road, and we're going to help you have a life. And so that's it, to be honest with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much again. You know, I do believe the consistency on the show will happen again, and I will definitely be there. But thank you so much. And if you have any queries, any messages that you want to send on Accompanied by Jess, please email me on accompaniedbyjess@gmail.com. I am more than happy to hear your requests and everything else. So I'll be here next week at 5 p.m. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Boss Province TV, désormais sur satellite et en RDC. Soyons connectés avec l'excellente musique congolaise. Suivons des moments de joie et d'amour avec les fêtes de mariage et d'anniversaire. Nourrissons notre foi en Dieu avec les services de prière et de culte. Suivons l'histoire du Congo et les documents